to also record and maybe share later, but this is the first of many opportunities we'd like to use on the platform of this alliance to help people out with educational resources and also really fight for and advocate for water polo to be as an inclusive space as possible for all of us. And so that's one of the things that we'd like to do here as a group, is to make sure that we are having our sport of water polo, the sport that we all love so much, be accessible and available to as many people as it possibly can be. And that's the purpose of today. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, a lot more about that as we go on. I know many of you guys have heard me give this talk at either Junior Olympics or for your clubs or for in different places. I've given this talk a number of times, and the difference between the talk that I've given before about this, or maybe the webinar that USA Water Polo has online right now of me giving this versus today, is that I really want to make sure that this talk today and what we're doing this afternoon, this evening, is about really navigating this space as somebody who wants to have this information given to them directly. This information is not widely available unless you really search for it on the USA Water Polo website, or unless your club you're very fortunate or privileged enough to be from a club that does this for you specifically and offers this information. Then this info is not out there. I've been asked to give this talk at clubs before. Like I said, I've given it at JOs. When I was the director of the Santa Barbara Water Polo Club, I was given, I would give this information directly to my athletes there. But otherwise, it's difficult to navigate. And then sometimes when the time comes to navigate it or you get it, people want to charge you money for it, right? Or they want to make it available to you, but at a price or at a premium. And so here, this is for us. This is an open space for us to advocate for you guys all to play at the collegiate level again, for free and open to all. So one of the reasons why you see Chelsea Johnson on here and now Max Irving, thank you for joining us and seeing these two people, lovely people with us here today, is for more than one reason. One, they are both part of the founding group of people who started the Alliance for Diversity and Equity in Water Polo. And the purpose of this alliance was, again, to advocate for and fight for inclusivity in water polo. And I think having both of them there as part of this group is the reason they're here today. And whilst they are part of that group, they also have had their own paths to navigate to the collegiate level and through our sport. And so I think they have stories to share, and I think it's important that you guys hear from them before you hear from me for the next hour. I'll be answering a lot of questions and talking a lot about recruiting, but more interesting and more important is to know that there are people who actually navigated this path from different places. And so I want you guys to hear for a few minutes from people like Max and Chelsea, and know that how accomplished both of them are. We'll start with Max, but I'd love to introduce Max right now. And he just recently signed another second or third now professional contract to play overseas. He'll be playing for Olympiacos in Greece in the Champions League. Again, he's on the national team and came from Long Beach, California, but then also through his age group water polo ended up playing at UCLA. So would love just for a few minutes for Max to share his story, and then I'll introduce Chelsea and have her share a little bit about her story and a little more about the Alliance as well. But thanks, Max, for being here today. Just a few minutes would be great for everyone to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely, John. Thank you for having me. Chelsea, it's nice to see you. John, always a pleasure to be in your presence and on a Zoom call with you guys and talking about the Alliance. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to talk about my college experience today. Personally, I grew up in Long Beach, California. I started aquatics at Seal Beach Swim Club, and then was introduced to the sport of water polo by just starting a summer camp. And I think that's something that's really unique about water polo, is that if you enjoy aquatics, typically you're going to enjoy the sport and enjoy the sport of water polo. So that's where I kind of began my journey with water polo, continued to play up through age group, and played well at high school. I was fortunate to be coached by a ton of great coaches here in Long Beach. I'm from Long Beach, California, so it's a place of historic kind of aquatic tradition. So that definitely, I'm very fortunate of that. And so I can say this, coming out of college, I wasn't the most highly recruited. So, I mean, that's something that maybe you guys could be experiencing as well. Water polo is a kind of difficult sport. I mean, we are so used to just hearing about football and basketball and these kind of revenue-making sports in the NCAA. And water polo is a unique sport because it's different. You don't have so many scholarships. I mean, every team can only recruit so many players. So with that being said, I was recruited by a few schools and was able to get some portion of scholarship. Even me, being a guy who's now on the national team, a guy who's served and who's like has professional contracts now, when I'm navigating from my high school to now playing in college, I mean, it was something where it's not, you're not always going to have the best offer or the most lucrative or the best best offer coming out of high school. So I think that's not something to be discouraged by, because sometimes coming out, we like look to our friends who might be going to USC, UCLA. But if you guys really love water polo and are committed to play at the next level, then I think you guys will have a lot of success. So that's something that I know, that if you're just able to put in the time and you love the sport and you want to play the sport at the next level, and you listen to your coaches and you're willing to put in your time, energy and effort to the sport, then I think you guys, and I know you guys will all be very successful. So just a few short words there.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, Max. And part of the experience of having you on here too is so that people can follow your journey as well, because I know it's still going, right? And
Yeah.
you're still going as an athlete and to continue. And I think it's important for everyone to have role models along the way. Maybe just really briefly, Max, what was the experience versus playing, going from high school to college? What was the value of playing varsity water polo in college, right? There's the option not to play, or there's the option to do other things, but the value of actually being a student athlete on campus, what was that like for you briefly, at UCLA?
Yeah, so that student athlete experience, I think if you guys are fortunate to have that opportunity, it's something that you guys should cherish. And even just being recruited now from high school, I mean, there's so many kids that would love to just be in the position that you guys are in. So, I mean, my college experience at UCLA was awesome. Just one thing I would say is just like the level of commitment it takes just with your time. For example, you have to know that you want to play water polo and that you're going to be committed to playing, but just the experience of being able to go to a university and be a part of the university's team and athletics, I mean, it's really awesome, especially just to continue to play at that level. I mean, this is the sport that we all love, the sport that now we all continue to love. Abdou still loves the sport. Chelsea and I would still love the sport. And I think it's great that you guys are having this opportunity to continue to play. So, I mean, I have nothing but great things to say about the NCAA water polo system. I think it's really great. And there's a lot of great coaches. And I think it's a place for you guys all, if you want to continue to play the game and continue to get better, I mean, it's a great place to do so.
Yeah. Thanks, Max, for sharing your story, and thanks for being a great role model for all the young boys and girls out there.
Thank you guys. Yeah, thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah. Appreciate that. Chelsea, on your side as well. So Chelsea Johnson here grew up in Miami, Florida, the Miami area in Florida. Went to Ransom Everglades High School, and then went on to Princeton University and graduated from Princeton in 2018. So not only, and then now continues to play for the New York Athletic Club and coach and play with Miami Riptides and in all different places around the world. One other thing I'd like to mention about Chelsea as I introduce her here is that she is also the president / CEO of the Alliance for Diversity and Equity in Water Polo. She is someone who's leading us through this and is incredibly passionate about it, and is currently in her second year of law school at the University of Miami. And so, and that's another great role model for us to have in front of you guys today, and also to help us lead in this path of the Alliance and us working towards diversifying our sports. So Chelsea, it's an honor to always have you with us and to help lead the way here. And maybe you could talk a little bit about the path that took you from Miami up to Princeton, New Jersey. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. John, thank you so much for inviting me to speak on this panel. And Max, it's always good to see you. Hi, everybody out there. It's nice to be able to talk to you guys about something that I love so much and that I'm so passionate about. Can everybody hear me? John? Okay, good. Okay, so yeah, I was born in Miami, Florida, and started playing water polo randomly because my siblings and I had a pool in our backyard. And my mom was afraid that we would all fall in the pool because none of us knew how to swim. And so she took us to get lessons at a park next to our elementary school. And at that park, like swim program on Fridays, if we did Monday through Thursday of swimming, we could play water polo on Friday. So the coach would just give us a ball and we'd pass around. And she was very excited to have five of our children in our family because it's almost like a full team. you only need 6 to play. And so she was really excited to have the Johnsons as a part of her team. And that's really where our water polo career started. Everybody played water polo, everybody swam. But coming from Miami, it was a little bit different than many of you might like the same experience many of you might have. Coming from California, water polo was not very popular in Miami, and let alone in Florida. And so the process from Miami to Princeton was a little bit harder, I would say, just because I can't see anything. Can everybody still hear me?
Breaking up a little bit, Chelsea. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I'm outside of a hotel and the service isn't great. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so my journey was a little bit different because coming from Miami, where water polo doesn't have much popularity and exposure, you have to get yourself seen. Truck going by. You have to get yourself seen. And so my sister and I were through the ODP pipeline for most of our entire lives, and would go to California for camps, come back to Miami, play in tournaments with ODP, play with Riptides, our club team. And from there, we would get seen by coaches. And so the Princeton coach saw us playing at various tournaments, including JOs. There's a big tournament called Internationals here in Miami that a lot of coaches attend, and we were able to get seen. And so I chose Princeton because while water polo was a priority for me, education was also a priority for me. And Princeton offered a really great education with also really great water polo. So it was kind of a balancing act that I had to perform, and really influenced my decision on choosing where to go to school. And all the reason why I chose Princeton, why Princeton seemed like really good fit for me. But I touched on Max said that when you're choosing your college, you need to know how much you want to play, the level like that you would like to play. You guys should know that there are different levels of water polo, right? D1, D2, D3. None of them are better or worse than the other, but some of them will allow you to have a different experience in school. So if you're going to a D1 school for water polo and playing water polo, you're going to be playing water polo, right? Full time, that's it. You're going to be going to school and playing water polo. So you have to balance those two things, and those things are both very important. At a school where you're playing maybe Division III, while water polo will still be serious, you're not going to be playing against such high caliber, high level schools. And so it'll just be a different experience, right?
Yeah.
Anything else you want me to touch on, John?
No, I think I appreciate being on. I may have you chime in as we get going here and as our numbers has come on, but appreciate you guys being on. I think the biggest thing as we've done this talk, and Chelsea and I have been able to do this together a few times in Miami at different camps, is to really show that this pathway is realistic, and it's an option for everyone, and this is the level for everybody. So despite like the Olympic Development Program being called the Olympic Development Program, it's not about just finding Olympians. And for this, having an alliance, it's not just about people like Chelsea and Max who are played at the highest levels and who are going. The idea is to have role models that we can follow and pursue, but also be in a position to play in a lot of different places. Like Chelsea mentioned, love that you mentioned that there's a lot of different places for us to play, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. And if you hear one thing in this talk today, what the most important thing I want you guys to get away from it is that there is a college for you out there that's thrilled to have you. Regardless of your level of play, there's a college, and there's a college coach, and there's a university, there's a program that's excited to have you go there, and is excited to have you play water polo there. And so there's a lot of options for you, and that's what we want. And we want everybody to do this, and there's a lot of reasons why. So I'm going to jump into it. If you guys have questions along the way for either of us as we keep going here, please feel free to use the Q&A section of the Zoom. You can pop, I prefer the Q&A instead of the chat. It makes things a little easier to follow. So please use the Q&A function on the Zoom, and you can ask questions and we'll answer them at the end, because there's a chance we'll be able to answer them for you along the way here. And so that becomes really important. So you heard it here first. We want you to play college water polo, right? There's a place for you to do that. in this time of COVID, that's what everybody's, I understand there's a lot of levels of anxiety at the moment that would say, how can I navigate this during this COVID time, right? If you're thinking about this, I want you to think about it in the way that you can control the controllable, right? Don't think that COVID is in the way of what's going on. So I failed to really introduce myself well. My apologies. Again, my name is John Abdou. I'm the Chief High Performance Officer at USA Water Polo. I was a former collegiate coach for 11 years. I coached at Bucknell University in Pennsylvania for 6 years, and I coached for several years at UC Santa Barbara, University of California, Santa Barbara, on the West Coast. I played my collegiate water polo at UC Irvine when I was younger, and then I was a club director, age group director, high school coach, national team coach, and now in this role for USA Water Polo, and also in my spare time, I'm also the executive director of the Collegiate Coach Association, right? So anything I'm saying today is on behalf of all collegiate water polo coaches, navigated and mentored a lot of athletes and coaches through this process. And so when I'm putting this stuff up, this is what we're talking about, right? This is not coming out of nowhere, and really just want to get this information to you guys for free. So now let's get back to the process. You're in COVID, you have some anxiety about this. It's okay. Control what you can control. There may be some people on this call who just graduated in the spring and you're still looking for a college. It's not too late. Many universities have rolling admissions. They have rolling admissions. There's chance for you to still go in. Some examples of those we listed above: St. Francis, Mount St. Mary's, Iona. These are colleges that have rolling admissions that you can jump into. Junior colleges in California have that. I'll talk about that as an option later. I believe the vast majority of people on this call are class of 2021, rising seniors, people who are starting their senior year right now. You heard Chelsea talk about being identified, in ODP, or Max talking about playing in high school in Long Beach, in a place where a lot of people playing water polo. What we're going to talk about and try to address is what can you do during this time that can help make up for the fact that maybe we're not all in the water right now playing at these showcase events and these things that are happening. Part of that is being on this call today. Part of that is being proactive in your communication as we talk about this moving forward, okay? If you are younger than a rising senior, this is great time for you then, right? You have plenty of now you're in a position to get this information, work with what you have, and keep going. But everybody, if you haven't done this yet, needs to, as you see on the screen right now, register with the NCAA Eligibility Center. It's an easy box to check right away. If you haven't registered with the Eligibility Center, please do so now. It's the basic fundamental level of academic eligibility you need to be able to play college sports, right? So everybody should go do it online right now. If you search NCAA Eligibility Center, you should you find it very quickly, and you can get that done, and it can be an easy win for you in this process. But again, control what you can control. And as we talk about this, we are in a dead period. So I stole this from the Michigan social media. What they have, we are in what is called a recruiting dead period, right? So in a dead period, the NCAA just extended this dead period to September 30th. So while between now and September 30th, this is what's allowed, and this one, you can ignore the big Michigan sign-ups up, just here where it says allowable and prohibited. What's allowable right now with college coaches: telephone calls, written correspondences, text messages, emails, all these things can work right now. But what's not allowed during a dead period, and this is to keep a level playing field during the time of COVID, this is what the NCAA has decided, is that there will be no on-campus or off-campus contact. So while there are no events, they don't want to give anybody an unfair advantage of being able to kind of navigate this alone. So keep that in mind as you're walking through. This is what is allowable and what is prohibited. And the dead period at this moment ends on September 30th, right? It goes till September 30th. So keep that in mind, all right? I talk about this a lot in terms of valuations when we talk about athletes. Some good advice for you, and both Chelsea and Max are great examples of this moving forward. Coach Popovich is the head coach of USA Basketball at the moment. And he's also the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs in the NBA. Somebody asked him one time, when you're evaluating an athlete, what are some of the questions you ask about an athlete while you're evaluating them? And these are the questions he asked. He asked, how hard do they compete? Do they have a desire to grow? How do they interact with their teammates? Do they have a sense of humor? These are the type of things that coaches are looking for and what they're trying to, when they're really recruiting, right? So we're going to talk a lot about what it takes to get recruited. Obviously, there's a baseline level. We want you playing water polo a lot, and you got to be good to get recruited. But at the same time, your character counts. right? So character counts, and all of these things count in terms of what your evaluation process is going to be like, right? And what we're looking for, coaches are looking for. And I thought this was a good way to see that. Moving forward, right? I want you guys to have a perspective on this. So part of this perspective is getting educated and educating yourself in this process. I've said this before. There are many people who are out there who this is a huge business. Getting into college admissions, the college recruiting process, college recruiting websites, NCSA, college counselors, professional college counselors, the entire business that goes into getting and navigating the college admissions process. And all of that is there because it is difficult to navigate. So what we're trying to do to help you today is educate you specifically on the water polo side of things. And water polo is different than other sports. So when I say on the slide here to educate yourself and that others may lead you astray, it's because it's really important for you to recognize that water polo is unique in the recruiting process versus other sports, right? Chelsea talked about your friends that play basketball, your friends that play soccer, different things. For us, it's different. And so when I was in high school, I went to Temple City High School in Southern California near Pasadena. My dad paid $75 for me to go to a college recruiting talk similar to this on campus. It was all about all sports. It was about everything in the recruiting process. And it turned out when I walked away from that talk, I didn't get very much out of it because they talked mainly about football and basketball and all these sports that weren't water polo. So one of the motivations when we started this, some of these slides are the same slides I've been putting up on this screen myself and Coach Mercado, Felix Mercado at Brown University, and other coaches have been doing it for 15, 16 years, same slides. And the reason we put these slides together is because we knew that water polo was unique in different other sports. And for you to have to go pay, like I had to in high school, at a talk that was about other sports and not get much out of it, we found ourselves here, right? So we want to be able to offer this for you directly. And where we say educate yourself, that's what you're doing today. But when you walk away from this, you're going to be left with some to-dos. And when the to-do that you walk away from today is to educate yourself on what schools are offering water polo. And when we say others may lead you astray, is that's very much in college sports in America, people feel really passionate about their teams, right? So maybe when I put up that dead period slide right before this and I said Michigan, maybe you went to Ohio State and you're really upset that I used the Michigan slide, or you're Chelsea who had to play them in the finals multiple times in the conference and she feels strongly when she sees that. Or in Miami, you have Florida versus Florida State, right? Or in Southern California for us, it's UCLA versus USC. And people get really, really passionate about their affiliations with their schools, right? But the reality is that's their feelings, and their feelings cannot dictate what your feelings are, right? About what your school is and what you're trying to accomplish. So want you to keep an open mind while you're educating yourself. Again, Chelsea said this really well too. There are multiple divisions. There's different levels of play. We'll talk all about those. But if you don't have an open mind, it's very possible that the school that you end up playing collegiate water polo at is a school that you haven't heard of yet. There's a really good chance. There's a really good chance today you learn or you find out after this. Like I just found out that Biola University in Southern California just started a varsity women's water polo team, and I get to go be for one of the first people to be on that team. It's fantastic. You may not have heard of Biola. You may not have heard of Augustana University in Illinois. Just started a women's varsity water polo team, and you get to go play there, Division II. A wonderful opportunity to be on their first teams. You may not have heard of Mount St. Mary's, right? You may not have heard of some of these places we're talking about. These are great universities. On the women's side, we have over 65 universities that offer varsity women's water polo. And on the men's side, we have 52 now, actually, 52 varsity programs out there. And that's a wonderful opportunity for you to have to go and explore that. So keep an open mind while you're looking through this. And the last thing we'll say on this perspective of this is to be proactive. You got to be proactive in this thing because, again, unlike other sports, unless you are maybe Ashley Johnson, right? Unless maybe you are Ben Halleck, right? Unless you are Chelsea Johnson, unless you're Max Irving. These athletes that I'm talking about in the 1%, Maddie Musselman, right? Our athletes who are in the top 1% of athletes, the recruiting process isn't going to come to you. You have to go do it, right? You're going to have to go dive into the recruiting process. And so that's really important. It's going to be different than the friend you're sitting next to in class, right? Who's getting, 50 to 60 letters because there's 500 soccer programs in the country and they got 50 recruiting letters to come with them. Water polo, I just said 65 women's programs, 52 men's programs. you are the one who are going to have to recruit yourself, right? You have to sell yourself a little bit, all right? Unless, again, top 1%, but most of us fall into that 99%, including myself. That's how I was out of high school. I had to push myself. I had to put my resume on a typewriter, type it up, put it in the mail, ask coaches to give me a call, right? And navigate on your own. Now in this digital age, it's much easier, but you got to take on the responsibility. So educate yourself, get ready to do some homework, right? Be proactive about it and keep an open mind. There are plenty of schools out there that offer water polo. All right. I'll take a breath. Chelsea, anything you want to add in there? Yeah.
Well, I just want to reiterate again what we've both been saying, that no school is bad, right? No program is a bad program. If one of your teammates is being recruited to Stanford, that doesn't mean that whatever school you're interested in is less than, right? Because I know that when I was going into the recruiting process, I was like, oh my God, he's going to this school, and oh my God, she's doing this. But I ended up where I needed to end up, right? And you guys will also.
Yeah. That's a great point. And one of the best examples I'm using lately is this of Makor Maker, right? So in this time, right, where you're keeping an open mind, Makor Maker is one of the top basketball recruits in the country, right? He could have gone anywhere, right? So I'm a big basketball fan. Maybe some of you guys are too. He could have gone to Kentucky. He could have gone to Duke, right? He could have gone to Louisville. Could have gone to any one of the major, quote unquote, major basketball programs in the country, right? Where he would have been guaranteed a spot in the NBA a year later and get a chance to go. And what he made this choice is that he made a historic choice to go to Howard University, right? He chose to go to Howard in Washington, D.C. and be one of the first 5-star top high school basketball recruits to attend an HBCU. And he says that this opportunity for him, he knows where the end result is going to be for him, right? That education and that process that he's going to get at Howard is still going to help him get it later in life, and he'll still be able to probably play in the NBA or play professional basketball. But he chose to go somewhere that historically is not very good at basketball, right? Or isn't the top program, but he's a good player and had the confidence to do so. And this has been one of the most inspiring stories for me from a recruiting lens during this COVID time, right? That this person made this decision to do that. So while I'm speaking to you right now, I mentioned Biola University, I mentioned Augustana, I mentioned Mount St. Mary's, I can keep going, right? All these schools that are out there that offer varsity water polo that are going to be thrilled to have you. And can you be one of the first people to be on their varsity teams? Can you be one of the first people to have the courage to make the same decision as Makor here made to attend Howard, right? Even as a top recruit, right? I say this again, there is a university out there that's going to be thrilled to have you, right? That's going to be thrilled to have you play there, and that is excited to have you, and there's not one better than the other. And part of that comes from the growth that we're starting to see here at the collegiate level, right? So the growth you're starting to see here is all these universities adding. The only one that I would take off this list, unfortunately, is Urbana University. If you see it there on the right, Urbana decided actually, unfortunately, it went under financially during COVID times, and as a university, no longer exists. So they were going to sponsor water polo, but now the university actually folded. But otherwise, these are in the last 5 years. These are all brand new programs that have started in water polo. I mentioned Augustana. There's Austin College in Texas. I mentioned Biola University that's going to offer men's and women's water polo starting this year. They're going to begin their first recruiting class. You can be part of their first recruiting class. When you graduate, they're going to have your name in the rafters. Your name's going to be in the record books. You're going to be able to show your kids that you were on the first water polo team at one of these universities, right? And do you have the courage to do so? Or are you going to follow the same path of, well, I have to go to this school that my friend's going to, right? Like Chelsea said, oh, I have to go to school because everybody said that was the cool school to go to, right? 2 years ago, Fresno State here in California started offering varsity water polo. Lots of courageous women chose to be on the first team there, and it paid off dividends, right? To have a 2-time Olympian Hall of Famer coaching that team, right? Leading the way, and Coach Natalie Benson, right? So both Max and Chelsea said this. Every one of these universities has great coaches, right? There's great coaches all over the place. There's great universities all over the place. Every one of these is a great academic option and also has a great coaching staff ready and available for you. And I think that's one of the best things about our sport as we keep going here. So keep in mind that the sport is growing. So despite COVID, water polo is growing at the collegiate level and will continue to grow. I know we've had some setbacks during this time, right? I'm going to recognize those, but also at the same time, know that water polo is intricate into a lot of these universities as it helps bring people to campus. If they get rid of sports like water polo, they lose the opportunity to bring more diverse people onto their campus. They need water polo just as much as we want to go play there, right? So keep that in mind. It's not going anywhere, right? So this gloom and doom about will these sports survive? I want to make sure you understand that it's going to be okay, right? That it's going to be okay because these water polo needs that. And so to that point, something I want you to show. Water polo has been growing dramatically on the high school level across the country, right? So as it's growing dramatically around on the high school level, the number and the percentage of athletes that play high school water polo and then go on to play in college, right, is actually quite low. Now, in sports like basketball, that's used to make the point of, well, not everybody's good enough to play in college and not everybody can matriculate to the top. In water polo, what I see from my position is that when a school adds a varsity program, they come back to me and they say, John, we weren't able to find enough coaches. We weren't able to find enough athletes. Why? I only had 10 athletes on my women's varsity team last year. And then I have to go back and look at these statistics and see that only 5% of men's water polo players and about 6% of girls' high school water polo players in high school go on to play in college. So there's a disconnect between these opportunities that these colleges are offering and then people taking advantage of them in the high school level. And then I go to high school camps with Chelsea and Max and everyone, and they come to me and say, I'd really love to play in college, coach, but nobody wants me. I disagree, and here's the data to prove it, right? There's schools that are out there that have small rosters, that are dying to have more people on their roster, that are looking to fill their roster, and only 6% of you are choosing to go play there. Now, there are other factors that go into that, right? There's a lot of factors that go into that, but my point is just want to have some data to prove to you that there's a school that's excited to have you, right? That there's a school that's excited to have you, and we can fill these rosters up if we start opening our minds and educating ourselves about all these different and wonderful, diverse programs that are out there for you to go attend, right? And that is your choice to be a trailblazer. Now, I understand as we get into financial aid, and I'm sure Chelsea can speak to this and other people can speak to this, when you grow up in Florida and there are no varsity water polo programs in Florida, right? You know that if you want to play varsity, you're going to have to leave the state. And the choice is, I should stay in Florida because my GPA offers me to get a really discounted tuition or free tuition at Florida State or Miami or University of Florida. And I get that. The same thing happens in Ohio. The same thing happens in Texas. The same thing happens in Illinois. So a lot of these places where we have a lot of high school water polo players playing, the choice is they end up staying in state because there are no varsity programs in their state, and it's a very affordable option for them to stay in state. So I understand that. And believe me, I empathize with that, and we're working very hard to see those universities add. But the realistic vision moving ahead is going to be that those schools that add are probably going to be on the Division II and Division III level in those areas. So keep in mind that when those programs add, it's not going to be part of the state program that you're in that has that offers those things that you're talking about, tuition discounts. But just know, as you keep going and you work towards this, there are schools out there. All right. So really briefly, we went through this. So we have Division I schools, Division II, Division III. One thing to remember at this level, as kind of Chelsea alluded to, these schools all play each other. So if we have 52 men's varsity programs and 65 women's programs, that means the D1s and D2s, that's all combined. They're all going to play each other. So a lot of time when I say there's 500, varsity soccer programs out there, that would mean within Division I, the Division I schools only play each other because there's 150 or 200 of them, right? Here, we all play each other. So know that Division III schools consistently beat Division I schools in water polo. It happens all the time, right? There's not a season that goes by where a Division I school does not lose to a Division III school. And then we have options like where Chelsea went, where she went to Princeton, right? Where it is considered a Division I program, but from a calendaring standpoint, from a training standpoint, it really operates more like a Division III program, right? Meaning that in your off season, in your time, right? Your time is dedicated to academics as well. If you guys can see my hands now, right? At a Division I school, water polo and academics, it's going to be the same, full time, all right here together, right? A Division II, Division III, academics stays high and water polo goes down a little bit, right? And you have more time to spend there. Now, again, I said this about the Ivy League schools and other schools. They may say they're Division I, but they may operate a little bit more like they're on the Division III level to allow that balance. What does that balance look like? The balance looks like that there may not be full merit-based scholarships for you at those levels, but you'll have more flexibility in your schedule. And when I say flexibility in your schedule, for women, that means your fall season is more flexible. But for the men, your spring is more flexible. Your summers are more flexible. You have more time on your hands, right, when it comes to these things. And what does that time look like? It could mean internships. It could mean studying abroad. It could mean multiple different places, things that you could do to use your time, right, during when it's non-water polo time to be there. When I was at Bucknell University, I'd have athletes consistently come to me and say that they want to study abroad. And I would always be thrilled for them to do that. When I was at UC Santa Barbara and we'd have full springs and full summers for our men plan, and athletes come and say, hey, I want to study abroad, I'd say, I'm not sure if you can pull that off and keep your roster spot and graduate at the same time. It doesn't integrate that same way. So the difference is being able to have those opportunities to do more. I'll get into financial aid later. How you doing there, Chelsea, with your connection? Can you see us all right?
I can see you. I'm not sure if you can hear me or see me, but I see that my camera is really messed up.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to move to get some better connection. I don't know what happened because it was pretty good for a while.
All good. All good. Well, feel free to pop in when you can. And so one of the things I want to say about the divisions, right, is that in these divisions, 1, 2, 3, again, more data for you to back up some of the things I'm saying. The most athletes, right, the most athletes in the country, the most schools in the country are at the Division III level, right? So there's more Division III programs than there are Division I programs, meaning you're going to have more opportunity at the Division III level than at the Division I level to play, and that's important. Division II, there's not that many Division II schools. It's kind of in the middle, so I kind of lump them in with D2, D3, and just know that there's more D2s and D3s than there are D1s, so there's more opportunities. This data is directly from the NCAA. And one thing to highlight here, right? One thing to highlight here is that you'll notice that there's no athletic scholarships. I get that at the Division III level, Division II level. But I'm going to say this a lot in this talk. Admissions is the new scholarship. Admissions is the new scholarship. It's so competitive right now to get into schools that water polo can help you get in. And if water polo can help you in, that is your scholarship. Admissions is the new scholarship when it comes to this time. And also notice that when we talk about financial aid and you have that opportunity to go to Division II or Division III school, know that while you're on campus at a Division III school, there's a higher probability that you're going to be around other student athletes. So there's a larger number of student athletes in proportion to the larger student body at Division II, Division III schools than at Division I, except at the Ivies or places like that, right? Smaller Division I schools, again, that operate a little bit more like a Division III school, right? They operate a little bit more from an operational standpoint. And one of the things that we've done to combat this at USA Water Polo is that we have really found that the Division III experience is a very important one, and we found that there's going to be growth, a lot of growth at that level. There are a lot of colleges that are going to add water polo at the Division III level. So just last year, we started sponsoring the Division III Collegiate Water Polo National Championship. And in this event is we crown a Division III national champion. And when we crown that Division III national champion, that is different than the NCAA, but it gives us a chance to be able to see a Division III team navigate their whole season and then come up and become a national champion in the end. And I think that for us, that becomes something that allows meaning for their season, a meaningful championship at the end, and then it gives other programs a reason to add water polo. And so one thing I'd like to share with you guys now is just a video from the first one we had. We were only able, with COVID, to have the men's division, first inaugural men's Division III national championship in December. The women's one we had to cancel in May, and I'm hoping that we continue to add more. And as more Division III schools add water polo, we're going to have more opportunities to host these championships. And so this is something that, again, we're really looking forward to as you get a look and you get a sense of the emotion that was tied to this and how seriously all these teams took this, as it was a really, unique chance for them to play at this level. This is Whittier College defeating Claremont McKenna at home in front of their home crowd, big crowd, for the inaugural Division III champion, USA Division III Water Polo Championship. So I'll qualify my bias. I'm definitely selling and pushing that there's great opportunities at the Division III level. And one of those things is an opportunity to win a national championship. And this is no offense to those Division III schools, but a Division III school had not won an NCAA championship ever. And that is because our NCAA championships at the varsity level are generally dominated by the Division I schools, and we haven't been given that opportunity yet. Given the opportunity to win a championship, that's what it looks like. So I encourage everyone to have an opportunity to do that, and more schools are going to be a part of this moving forward, right? So balanced education, opportunity to be on a team, a coach that's thrilled to have you, right? A school that's thrilled to have you on campus amongst other student athletes. Great experience to do all of this. I highly encourage it. Again, but if you want to pursue the Division I route, know that at that Division I route, there's challenges that go with it, but a lot of rewards as well if you're willing to put in the time and be committed, as both Chelsea and Max talked about in the beginning here, okay? There are other types of college water polo. We talked about junior colleges. Those are only in California. Only in California do the junior colleges offer water polo. There's no water polo offered in junior colleges outside of California. These are 2-year degrees. It's a great opportunity to get to know yourself better, get to know what you're trying to accomplish academically, athletically, and then matriculate, transfer to a 4-year school afterwards. Many of the people I talked about, Illinois, Texas, Florida, Pennsylvania, New York, may go play club water polo. Now, just remember that we're speaking today specifically about varsity water polo. College, I should say club, is one that's funded by the athletes. It's kind of self-governed and self-run by club. It's self-governed by club, and I think that's something that is another option for you. And again, Chelsea said this well earlier. It's not a bad thing, right? These are all great opportunities to play at the collegiate level, and we understand if that fits into what you're doing, awesome. But we're trying to, today, what's more difficult to navigate, if you find yourself playing club, find the club on campus, jump in and play, it's generally open. The more difficult thing to navigate is the college recruiting process, and that's where we'll spend time on today, but know that that's an option as well. Looks like you found a good spot, Chelsea. Yeah.
I'm back.
All right, awesome. So good. Part of the homework that we talked about, you can visit USA Water Polo, go to sport development programs, go to College Corner, and what we've done is we've listed every collegiate team for you there already, right? So it's all there for you. You link right out to it, and it'll be there. If you're looking for the clubs, go to the CWPA website, collegiatewaterpolo.org, and you'll find all the collegiate clubs. Anything that I talk about, I'm taking probably weeks, hours, a month worth of information and going as fast as I can to squeeze it into an hour, right? So that we can ask questions. But other questions, if you want to learn more about official visits, unofficial visits, any topic that I touch now and you want to get into more, you'll be able to find it on our archived website in the USA Water Polo site here. In fact, there's an archived web version of this talk that you can go back and listen to as well in some other places. So again, feel free to dive in, and that's part of the homework that you have coming up, okay? So these two people that we had on here before, right? You get a chance to see what they look like playing in college, all right? When I had recruits come into my office and talk about why they should come to the university I was coaching at when I was coaching college, right? We always talked about 3 things, right? And so these are the priority lists. If you were in my office and the university that I was coaching at checked all 3 boxes, then we kept talking. If it wasn't 3 for 3, then there's no harm, no offense, probably time for you to be looking somewhere else. There's no substituting, finding that all 3 of these things match your profile and match what you're looking for when you're in the recruiting process, okay? So first thing I'd ask, is an academically fit school for you, right? So a lot of the stress and anxiety that comes with this for people is sometimes when they look at universities and colleges that maybe don't fit their academic profile. And that's no offense to any of you, right? Or any of what your academics are doing, right? But if you don't have the GPA to get into Princeton and the Princeton coach isn't writing you back, right? Or communicating back to you, that might be part of the rub, right? That's a good chance that that's what the case is. So if you start looking at schools where your academic profile fits, you're going to get more attention. So that's 1. And 2, does it have what you want to study? Is it a place where you're going to be able to have some time into studying there? 2, athletically, good advice is you don't want to go somewhere where you're going to be the best player on the team when you get there, but you also don't want to go somewhere where you're going to be the worst player on the team right away, right? You want to go somewhere where you're going to get challenged, pushed, but also have a chance to play, right, and be integrated in the program, right? So it's finding that right fit and asking your club coaches, your high school coaches, what is realistic for me in terms of my level of play? That's not for us to choose. That's for them to help evaluate you and give you that, and then being direct and honest with the college coaches and asking them where you fit in. All college coaches are going to be very direct about that as well, right? They'll tell you where you fit in, how that works. And if they're not being direct or you're not feeling like you're getting the right, ask again. Ask for clarification, right? Ask, my level of play fits into your program, how? Right? Where do I fit in positionally? Where do I fit in, right? Athletically, how do I compare to the rest of your team? This is especially important for goalkeepers too, because there's only a few spots of goalkeeper spots on the team. So you have to ask, where am I going to fit in as I navigate this? So know that if my school, your school you're looking at, hits academically, no, I'm great. Athletically, awesome. Then we went 2 for 2. And then 3, is this a place that you're going to be okay with, right? And you don't have to go far from home to find some of these places. Rural campuses versus in city campuses. No matter where you live in the country, right, you're 2 hours away from a rural campus at least, right? You can go find and see what that kind of off-campus place looks like in a different part of town. You're probably very close to a place where you can find what a city school looks like. Does it have the culture that I want? Is it a campus that I feel comfortable in? Right? Outside of Water Polo, does it have the activities and the clubs that I'm looking for? Right? Now, you're sitting in the office. We're on a Zoom now because of COVID, and you're talking to the college coach, and you went 3 for 3. Great. You're 2 for 3. Then maybe we'll put this on hold for a little bit, right? We got to make sure that you cover all these bases as you're looking through this. Chelsea, how was it for you when you were thinking about this process as well? Or do you have anything to say or add here? Yeah.
So academics was very important for me. Mm-hmm. The high school that I went to really challenged us to push ourselves academically. And so I knew that I wanted to go to a university that also pushed me, and I didn't want it to be easy in any way, but I also wanted to be at a pretty high level of water polo. So I was looking for a balance between those things. And then campus life, I was really interested in being able to go into the city but not be in the city. And Princeton it's in its own little town and very small, and if you walk like 10 minutes in any direction, you're in the forest, which was like really cool. But you could get on a train to New York City and be there in an hour, right? So there were options, and you didn't have to stay in the city, and you didn't have to stay like out there in the rural area, and you're also in a little town. So actually all 3 of these things were very important for me when I was looking for colleges. The far from home thing was really, really close to my heart because we had never really left home. We barely even traveled other than for water polo, and my mom usually came with us. So it was hard to imagine going somewhere that my family wasn't close by. And so I chose where my sister was at Princeton as another way to stay close to home without being home.
Yeah.
There's an echo because you're on both, John.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
No, I'm out. I'm trying to see your I know questions are coming in, so I'm trying to find a way to be able to see it. Maybe, Chelsea, if you can see some of those questions and help aggregate them on side. I'm having a hard time seeing them over here, but just trying to log into another computer. But thank you for sharing.
I saw a question earlier. I don't have it because I had to log out and come back, but it was asking about if registering for the NCAA eligibility website is only for if you want to play Division 1, 2, or 3 in college.
Correct. That's a great question. Yeah, so that's if you want to play Division 1, 2, if you want to play varsity water polo in college, then you got to register. If club, it doesn't matter, right? It's only varsity. Yep. And a lot of times when I get asked that question, I get asked, do I do that my senior year? Do I do my junior year? When I do? You can register as early as your freshman year. Jump in and start registering now. You'll obviously have to fill in information with your updated transcripts and grades and things like that as it goes on. But you, during the time of official visits, you're actually not allowed to go on an official visit until you're registered with the clearinghouse, right? And so the earlier you're registered, the better, right? And again, it doesn't take much time, but it's getting yourself basically into the system as you go. Thanks for that question. Chelsea, if there's any others that keep popping up, let me know. And
there's one more right now that I can answer.
Yeah, tell me. Yeah.
Okay, so Jada asks, she says, Chelsea and Max, how was it playing as a minority in college? So for me, I kind of had two different experiences at the same time, because while I was a minority and one of the only minorities on my team, I also had my sister. So it was kind of like we had our own little community, not to escape to, but to be in. And we didn't really realize or feel like we were minorities on the team because we had each other. But then going outside of Princeton water polo and going to other, going to tournaments and going to California we had a spring break trip to California every year. It was a little bit shocking that we were the only African-American people on any pool deck. So that was a little bit weird. And while we should, like, I guess we were used to it, we also thought that we were playing water polo at such a low level prior to college that there would be more diversity when we got out of the bubble that was like club water polo in Florida. And when we went to college, it wasn't much different. So that was a little bit surprising, but it wasn't, I wouldn't say it had an impact on our playing experience, but it was a little bit strange to be like two of maybe three people of color or African-American people on a pool deck at any given time.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, Jada, and I'm glad you answered that, Chelsea, for us too. And I think in general, what you're going to look at from a diversity standpoint in water polo is that rarely are you going to find more than 2 or 3 people of color on any given one varsity water polo team in the country, right? Like it's going to be narrowed to maybe 2, maybe 3 at any given point. And so one of the things that we encourage, right, is that we want water polo to be more diverse, and we could talk a lot about the history of that, and that the Alliance is speaking about that on a daily basis through our social media and the platform that we're at. But for you, when you're looking at it through a recruiting lens, Chelsea touched upon a really important point, is that water polo is not going to be the only social group that you have on campus, right? Water polo is not going to be the only group of people that you interact with. And so what's really important as you look at this priority list is, yes, does it hit academics, does it hit athletics? And is the campus inclusive enough, is the group inclusive enough where you can find and navigate other places for you to feel welcome or to feel a part of this, right? And so I think your campus life is going to be diverse in other ways as well, right? Outside of water polo, and how you enrich it is important. And particularly at places like Princeton or Ivy League schools, but also like the Division II and III schools we talked about, where water polo is the #1 most important thing, right? Always, all the time. You're going to get a chance to explore some of that. I think that's important for us to express to everybody too, right? That you're going to have a wide variety of experience in college. Keep the questions coming. I'll power through some of the more slides, and we can keep answer some more at the end. All right.
There's one more, but that we can answer.
Sure. You answer now or at the end? What do you think?
We can answer it now.
All right. So.
Yeah, it's just asking about athlete profiles and videos that they should build as part of the recruiting process. So I feel like we might get to that also.
Yeah, we're going to get to that real quick. Yeah. And
okay.
So a great question. Hang on to that. Hopefully we'll discuss it. And if I didn't answer your question, we didn't answer your question when we get to that point, we'll address it then. So the next few slides, I'll hammer through. I know that when we talk about academics, I'm talking about it through the lens of a water polo coach and from the Water Polo Alliance and what we're trying to accomplish here to help you. I've said this already, admissions is the new scholarship. But when it comes to what your grades need to be and what you need to be working with your college counselor on campus. So whoever your college counselor is on your high school campus, spend some time with them. Some of you who have the means and the resources and the privileges to get extra help on this outside of your home, great. Take advantage of that as well. Not everybody has that. But know that on your campuses, there are college campuses, counselors who can help you navigate this. It's a moving target when it comes to admissions, so when academics. This is the one thing I can tell you as a water polo coach. Academics is important. So regardless of what GPA you need to be accepted into the university and into the school, I need to have, as a college coach, athletes on my team that I don't have to worry about academically, right? So it doesn't matter if you have a 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, whatever the number is, right? It doesn't matter to me. But when you're on my campus and you're on my team, what I want to know is, do I have to ask you how school is every day? Am I going to have to go visit your professors and make sure that you're going to class? Am I going to have to make sure that you're doing your homework? Am I going to have to make sure that you're proctoring tests while we're online or being responsible for that while we're on the road? right? Are you a responsible student? The numbers don't mean anything. Everyone is going to achieve academically what they're going to achieve. And if once you reach that level to get into the universities that you're looking at, as a college coach, I need to know that you take school seriously. I also need you to know that water polo isn't going to make up for that much of a deficit for you academically to help you get accepted. No one's going to say, hey, I don't care if you're a bad student, water polo gets you in. Your football friends might hear that. Your basketball friends might hear that, right? And say, hey, academically, we're just going to ignore half this transcript, but you're a really good football player. Come play for us, right? That's never going to happen in water polo, right? So we're going to need you to be a great academic student and then also come in. And if a coach says to you, Max said this earlier, that even he got a small scholarship to UCLA. If a coach comes to you and says, we have this small financial aid package, but we're going to get you in, that's a great offer in water polo. Admissions is the new scholarship. When it comes to competition, academically, to get into a lot of universities now, it is insane. So in my alma mater, UC Irvine, they just sent statistics from the last year that 122,000 applicants to UC Irvine last year. When I left UC Santa Barbara, excuse me. When I left UC Santa Barbara in 2013, our high watermark for applications at that point was 96,000 applicants. My mind was blown. I had 10 spots I could use as the coach at UC Santa Barbara to help people get accepted, and 96,000 people applied. So when I called that guy and said, listen, I got a spot for you to get into UC Santa Barbara, but you got to say yes. I was offering him the scholarship. I was offering him the opportunity to come to school where 96,000 other people didn't have that. That's really important to recognize, that admissions to new scholarship, as competitive as it is to get into schools, right? So if water polo gives you that opportunity, take advantage of it. School is important. We used to talk a lot about testing in this talk as well, right? The difference between SAT, ACT. Your college counselors may have or will have more information on this for you to know. One thing I'd love to put your mind at ease about is most schools now are moving towards a test optional model, right? When it comes to SAT and SAT, right? The reason I say this now, because I know there's a lot of parents and coaches are on the call, and there's a lot of anxiety that comes around the SAT and the ACT when it comes to these standardized tests. I was a former high school teacher for a long time as well. I got my master's in education. I studied this for a very long time. I got my master's at Bucknell while I was coaching there in education. The SAT and the SAT are rooted in discrimination. They're rooted in insisting people of privilege, activating a system of privilege to allow for college admissions. Not seeing these in the pathway now, or having schools have optional testing or remove it from their admissions process, to me is a win for all of us, right? Because generally speaking, those families who could afford the extra SAT tutor, who could afford the ACT tutor, who could put in the time and the money in it, tend to do better on the test. There's a lot of studies that show this, right? And a lot of work that went into that. The SAT itself was founded on discriminatory practices, right? It was founded and it was actually written initially by a eugenist, right? A eugenist is somebody who feels that certain races are superior than other races intellectually and academically. That's who wrote the SAT as it started, right? So believe me when I say this to take the ease off of you that this is not an indicator for college success. There are very few studies, there are 0 studies that I found that where an SAT or an ACT score is indicative of someone's future success in life. It's not how it goes, right? So what you need to know though is do your best as you can in this situation. Reach your potential academically, and the schools will be able to find you, right? The schools will be able to find you, and we will help find you the right fit for you as it comes to school when you reach your potential, right? When you do your absolute best that you can academically. No coach is going to say that your GPA or your score is going to keep you from being on the team unless it doesn't help fit their admissions profile, right? So just make sure you're finding schools that fit your profile, and that you're doing the best, and that you know that school and academics is important, and it's going to be a big part of your college career moving forward. But this test optional is something that I want you to explore with your college counselors and explore with the colleges that you're looking at once you get down to your final list and you're spending more time there, okay? Quick myths that I want to hit. Coaches can get admitted whomever they want. We address this. False. That's not how that works for us, right? You got to be the best student that you could possibly be. Coaches get to communicate with their admissions offices all the time. False, right? For water polo, You send a coach your transcript, it may take a little bit for that transcript to get back or to get read or be reviewed. Take some time there, right? Water polo scholarships exist. I would prefer that we all live in a world where they don't exist. Just know that if the school can get you in and you have an admissions process, we'll talk about financial aid a little more in a second, right? But just know that admissions is the new scholarship, right? And if you get any money strictly for water polo, then take it. It's a great thing, right? But there are a lot of other avenues for financial aid that will come. And from a water polo, just strictly water polo scholarship, it's very limited, especially on the men's side. Especially on the men's side, right? On the women's side, is a little more. But guys, if you're a parent of a male or men who are out there right now, the maximum amount of scholarship that a school can offer is 4.5. And that's if they're allowed to offer scholarships in the first place. The maximum is 4.5. When I was at UCSB, when I was in Santa Barbara, we were allowed to have 4.5. The school only gave us 3. And then I had to divide 3 scholarships amongst 32 men at any given moment, right? So you could do the math. I was a sociology and education major, right? So I can't do the math, but divide 3 scholarships amongst 32 people, right? If I said, here's $500 for books and an admissions opportunity at UCSB, it was a great offer, right? Or even if I just said admissions, right? So we had to split that money up amongst a lot of people. Last thing's very important. If a coach does not contact me, he or she's not interested, false, right? We talked about this at the beginning. It's up to you to communicate, right? Up to you to communicate and be persistent in that communication as we talk more and more as we keep going. Okay, contacting coaches. There's some rules. Yeah, please, Chelsea.
We have a question about requiring SAT and ACT. Someone says, Coach John, do you believe the NCAA will still require the SAT/ACT, although many student athletes have not been able to take it due to COVID?
Right. So it's not the NCAA's choice. It's each
school.
Institution's choice, right? So each school will choose. And what I described on that slide before is that the trend is showing that due to COVID and a lot of enlightenment that comes around the basis of these tests of the SATs and ACT, that most schools are moving towards test optional admissions processes, right? So most schools are turning to where the SAT or ACT is not required. A lot of that has to do with COVID. A lot of that has to do with the realization that it's not indicative to college success, but that is not an NCAA decision. That is going to be an institution by institution decision as you're applying and as you're discussing the recruiting process with them. So very important that if you haven't taken the test or you've taken the test or you're thinking about taking it again, depending on the schools you're going to, that you ask the coaches specifically what their requirement is for the SAT or ACT. All right? Does that answer the question?
Linda Williams, she's a counselor, and she replied in the chat.
Yeah.
I'm going to read her answer. Mm-hmm. She says, one note about the ACT/SAT. We are living in a test optional world, but the NCAA still requires a test score for eligibility. So as an athlete, you might not need a test score in order to be admitted, but you will still need at least one test date to submit. The score that is necessary will vary based on the selectivity of the school.
Fair. Good. And Linda, thank you for that, right? Linda, thank you for that. And know that I'm hoping in my conversation with NCAA that no longer becomes a requirement at Eligibility Center. It's a little outdated, and the NCAA is dealing with a lot of issues right now, right? But they're not, and they have yet to catch up to that one. But that needs to be, eventually will be away from in my experience with them or communication with them, eventually that'll be off the eligibility section of it, especially during these times of COVID. So maybe expect to hear from that before the end of the year, but yes, good point. A lot of the athletes I'm counseling now, maybe you have a test and you're working on it as we go. But thank you, Linda. Recruiting, points to you in terms of contacting coaches, right? In terms of contacting coaches and where you want to be at. Know that the new time, you're rising before your junior year, is June 15th. So the NCAA rules on the way. June 15th, you want to be in a position to, or you're going to be in a position to start receiving phone calls on that. The one other option that I say here for Division III schools is they get a chance to talk to you more regularly than Division I schools, right? Some of you out there want to serve in the military academy. Fantastic. You can be doing the Lord's work, and we really appreciate you wanting to serve our country. That's the United States Air Force, Virginia Military Academy, United States Naval Academy. Those of you guys who are working towards that, just know that there's a whole other recruiting process and admissions process that goes on that requires a lot more. Sometimes a letter from your senator that goes into that. So make sure that you're spending some time getting to know that process as well, right? But know during this dead period that the communication's got to come from a lot of it electronically and not face-to-face. I say this a lot when it comes to communication, right? So when it comes to communication, a lot of the biggest stress that I hear from people is, coach, I didn't hear back from the coach. They didn't write me back. They're not interested, right? They're not, I'm not getting enough communication. Just know that for college coaches, most of the time in water polo, again, as opposed to your friends who play basketball, who play soccer, football, other sports, when I was at Bucknell University, and it's the same when Chelsea was at Princeton, she had one head coach, right, for both teams. One head coach for both teams. There could be 20 athletes or more on each team and one head coach, right? So that means the recruiting responsibilities, the communication that comes with it, it's going to be a little delayed, right? So I had one assistant coach when I was at Bucknell, and it was for both teams, and I was a head coach for both. So I was managing 44, 45 athletes at a time, right, with one assistant coach, and daily the communication was maybe somewhere between 50 to 150 emails on any given day. So it's going to be a slow response sometimes. So just know that if you're trending, the reason I say if you're trending in my inbox, right? If you're trending in my inbox, I'm going to call you back. If I have my second computer open on my right here, I'm looking, I have 6,542 emails sitting in my inbox right now, 149 unread, right? I'm going to miss one. I'm a human, right? I'm going to miss an email. I'm going to miss it. But I'll tell you what, if Chelsea's trying to get a hold of me, and I see Chelsea once, and I missed that email, right? But it was unread. And then I see it again a week later. I see it again 2 weeks later, and Chelsea's trending in my inbox. I'm going to pick up the phone and call her, or I'm going to write back. Thank you for your continued communication. I appreciate it. I have a lot of emails. Thank you for communicating. So there's an art in this, right, where you can't just email a coach once, never hear back, and say, well, I guess that university's not interested in me, right? You're going to have to spend some time being persistent in this. If a coach doesn't respond, remember that rule. So I always say, if you've emailed a coach 3 times, you really emailed them once, right? And the other question to ask there that I need to put in the slide next time is, remember to email the assistant coaches, right? You have to copy or email directly the assistant coaches on every communication. A lot of times, excuse me, because of the setup that I just described, those assistant coaches may be in charge of recruiting. Well, you have a head coach who's coaching 2 teams, right? So if that assistant coach is in charge of recruiting, they will respond back to you. Have a mature email address. Make sure your email address is one that represents you and represents what you're about. I have a ton of great stories of bad email addresses that came my way back in the day. I won't embarrass anybody now due to time, right? But if I get surferdude714@AOL.com, that's a little different, right, than getting chelsea.johnson@gmail.com, right? That's different. All right, I've had some bad ones come my way, and it's a bad first impression, right? You want to have an email address right away, and beware of how you write these emails to coaches. So I can't tell you the man I have in the right-hand corner up there on the screen, Coach Mercado at Brown, right? Well, I've said this in public interviews before as well, and the head coach at Harvard, Teddy Minnis, when all 3 of us were coaching on the East Coast together, most people in the water polo world couldn't tell us apart when we were on deck, right? They just couldn't, right? For right or wrong. Right? When people were writing emails to us, you don't know how many emails I got that said, hey, Coach Mercado, I'm very interested in Bucknell University, right? Or vice versa, hey, Coach Abdou, I'm very interested in UCLA, right? Because people didn't write personal emails to us as college coaches. I've also seen the bad mistake where some people, some student athletes will then take you go back to that USA Water Polo website I put in the beginning with all those email addresses, copy all the email addresses, put them in email, and then send a blast to all college coaches in the country and say, hey, I'm available. Here's my resume. I'm ready to play. Not okay either, right? You want to be personal in those emails, right? You want to be personal in emails. You want to personally communicate with every program so that they know that you're interested in them, right? And so beware of copying and pasting and how you write those emails. I'll give you in 25 seconds the best email you can write a coach, right? Dear Coach Abdou, my name is Chelsea Johnson. I'm interested in Bucknell University, right? I'm a class of 2021. Attached is my resume. I saw last Friday night that you defeated the Naval Academy 7-5, right? It was a great game, right? I saw on your roster that you have 3 athletes from the same area that I'm from, right? I'm very interested in playing university. Please contact me soon. Done. Why is that email impressive to me as a coach? 1, you're following my season. You're watching my scores, right? 2, you didn't say much because you attached your resume and you said, we're going to talk about what a resume looks like in a second here. And I know that I can get my information off your resume, and you know that I have 6,000 emails and I can't read a long email, right, in the middle of that, right? I got to it quick. And you've looked at your roster on my team, and you know that you might fit in, right? You see where other people are, and you've done your homework. It has to be personal. You've caught my attention now, right? You've caught my attention as a coach, and now we're able to talk. No, in water polo too, in social media, we have I put 1 degree of separation in water polo. There may be a half a degree of separation in water polo, right? So as a college coach, in the 65 women's programs that we have and the 52 men's programs that we have, there's a very good chance that your coach, high school coach, club coach, is a degree of separation, 1 degree of separation away from that college coach, or a degree away from someone on that team. So anytime I had recruits coming to my campus any weekend and any place I was coaching, and the good thing about hearing me talk now is that I don't coach in college anymore, so I can give you some of my secrets. It's very easy for me to find out about you as a person. All I have to ask is my team. So I have a group of 6 women coming on official visits to me at my university this weekend, and one of them's from Miami. Chelsea, do you know this girl from Miami? I just have to ask Chelsea. She can find out. She's going to give me an inside scoop of who this person is. And then I go to someone on my roster and I say, hey, find out this person from Texas, this person from Illinois. Where are they from? Oh, I'm Facebook friends with her. Let me go find out. Then we can see what you're posting. We see what's happening in your social media. And it's before you even step on my campus, I have an idea about your character, who you are, and what you're doing from your team, period. And if you don't think college coaches are doing this, you're wrong. And let me be the 100th adult in your life to tell you to be aware of what you're posting on social media. I know everyone's telling you that, but just know it affects water polo, and it happens a lot. It happens a lot. I can tell. And then when you're on campus for that visit, while you're posting on your visit, right, will also be visible. I always tell the story about I had an athlete who was coming up for an official visit to me at Santa Barbara. They take the train. There was a train in California you could take up the coast to come visit. He decided that he wanted to post where he was committing to, which was not UC Santa Barbara, on his Facebook page while he was on his journey up to come see us at UCSB. So one of my athletes who was going to host him that weekend went on his social media, saw that Brian said that he was committed to UCLA, and he posted "Go Bruins," but he was on his way to go visit me at UC Santa Barbara. I met him directly at the train station. He stepped off the train. I said, thank you, son, for making the trip. Shook his hand. Congratulations on getting into UCLA. Put him back on the train and sent him home. You know? Had he kept his mouth shut, he would have gone to free steak dinner and a full fun weekend in Santa Barbara, which is what he was trying to do. But I would have found out anyway that he was just trying to take advantage of being on the trip, right? And so social media becomes very important, right, in this, and how you present yourself and how we all know each other. That 1 degree of separation is hurtful if you're not doing all the right things, but it's very helpful if you're doing all the right things, right? Because then for me, right, when I wanted to recruit that athlete from Florida, I could call one of the coaches I know there, or Chelsea or Ashley, and find out very quickly, hey, what do you think of Sophia? She's great. She's the best, right? Julianne Valdez, is she a great player or not, right? Let me know. Well, great. Then I'm going to recruit her so I know immediately, right? So that degree of separation can be very helpful or very hurtful, right? As long as you're doing all the right things along the way. Right? College visit times, right? This is a unique situation we're all in right now. So a lot of this stuff is happening virtually. A lot of coaches are meeting with other athletes through Zoom, through online, through all these things. But know that when the time comes, when the dead period is lifted, hopefully September 30th is the last day for the dead period, right? Then we can start maybe visiting campuses, walking around campuses and seeing some of the buildings. We highly recommend unofficial visits. It's a very easy way to navigate this process, a better way to navigate this process. And know that you have 5 total visits now. You can start going on your junior year for official. Unofficial doesn't count. You can go as many as you want, right? Official are the only ones that count, and know that it's limited to 5, right? But again, not something to worry about too much right now while we're in COVID time. Understand institutional camps. This is, to me, one of the easiest ways. You've done your homework now. You've gotten your list down to 5 schools, 3 to 5 schools, right? You've gone to a place where you're choosing. If that school offers a water polo camp, go to that camp, right? A lot of people go to camps just for fun or enrichment. That's all great. But when you're getting older and it's time to choose your school, and that school offers a camp, those camps help bypass the vast majority of NCAA rules that you couldn't do before, right? So if you're interested in Bucknell, Princeton, Santa Barbara, San Diego, whatever, and they offer a camp there, and you go, you get to actually work with the coach because you're a camper there. You get to sleep in the dorms. You eat at the cafeteria, right? You get coached by the current players. You may scrimmage with them against them at night in the camp, in the evening. And now you have this interaction that you never would have gotten on your official visit because of, against NCAA rules. And what that gives you is an opportunity then to really experience what it's like on campus. And that's either a big bonus or it's going to help you know that maybe that's not the school for you, right? And that's a great way to get that direct information. By the time, after my 6th year at Bucknell, by the time I got to the end, 80% of the athletes I had on my team had attended my camp at some point. 80 to 85% had attended my camp. Because at that point, I got to know them, they got to know me, they got to know the campus, and they say, you know what, food's great, I like sleeping here, pool's awesome, the team's great, I know I can play here, I shot on the goalie at night, right? I felt like I could compete on this team, right? This is a place for me. And so really take advantage of that. If you're saving resources for these things, allocate them to going to camps that are schools that you're actually interested in, right? And if resources are limited, prioritize going to institutional camps above just recreational, hey, I'm going to this camp for fun or just to get better, right? Especially as you get older. Younger, sure, but as you get into high school and you really want to learn that, it's a great chance to understand those, all right? You ever worked the water polo camps at Princeton, Chelsea, in the summer?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it's also a good place for you guys to get exposed to the coaches. Like the coaches get to watch you, get to see you play, right, outside of your comfort zone and with different people that you don't know. And so it's a really good place to be seen as well. Like I know when I was at Princeton, I would go to camps, and then at JOs, you see the same kids from the camps. You're like, hey, and so the coach knows you, and the coach is like, oh, let me go watch their game because I know they went to the camp. I'm gonna go watch their game. I'm gonna go say hi. Whatever, you know, you create that little rapport and you create that relationship before you're supposed to or whatever. You get a little bit of an advantage by going to those camps.
Yeah, and it's important to note that you can't try out for an NCAA water polo team. There's no tryouts, right? So going to a camp, it gives you a chance to do that along the way, right? Last few slides, I'll answer some questions. I said we talked about finances, right? I said we talked about this, right, when we got to this point. Know that at the college level, there are going to be opportunities, right, to get financial aid outside of water polo. So I already mentioned that it's very difficult to get a water polo scholarship, right? And again, at the Division III level, it's not even offered. But in many scenarios, and athletes that I've mentored, they have received better financial aid packages outside of water polo than from water polo because there's such limited money in water polo in the first place. Again, especially on the men's side. I said this before, I'll say it again. Admissions is the new scholarship. Admissions is the new scholarship. If they let you in, fantastic, right? If they help you get in, if they help you navigate, it's great. One thing to do is that most of these schools know that they have need-based aid, right? Need-based aid, but they also have academic aid that can be helpful. If you guys, and I know we have a college counselor, it sounds like, on the call as well. One of the great resources is fastweb.com. It's been around since I was a child, right? Go to www.fastweb.com, right? There are a lot of scholarships that are able for you to access. You can build a profile and find more there. Those of you guys who are fans of the show Shark Tank, and you've ever watched Shark Tank on ABC, it's a great pitch a few years ago by a group that created a program called My Scully, right? MyScully.com. I put it down there. You can build a profile, seek scholarships out that are outside of this area. But know that a lot of schools now, that the need-based aid, the merit-based aid outside of water polo, academic aid outside of water polo is growing and growing on a yearly basis, and it's something that can be very helpful for you, and you can navigate more on your own. Yep.
All right, 2 questions.
Yep.
I kind of think they're a little bit related. The first one asks about what about coming from a school or a club that's not in California, because
Yep.
most of the college rosters have 98% California players. So how does that work? What recommendations do you have in, I guess,
Well, and I think I'm going to talk about that next, a little bit when it comes to this. So financially, if there are any more questions, we can answer those at the end.
Well, there's a question about camps.
Okay, let's go back to that one.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Beth Bailey asks, this year has a huge challenge without camps. What advice do you have to help athletes during this time? And do you know if there will be camps added after the dead period?
Yeah. The minute the dead period is over and people can have people on campus, there's going to be a slew of camps available, right? I get that. And so I understand it's a challenge at the moment. I think the minute anybody is allowed to do anything, they're going to do it, right? And so college coaches are hungry to recruit. You prospective student athletes are hungry to be recruited. So we get that, right? We get that that's happening. my advice to the older players is to be patient, and then also we'll talk about creating videos and being more active in your process there. But the younger players, those camps are things you can plan ahead for, right? If you're not graduating this next year, right? But I think there's a really good chance that if dead period's lifted and some restrictions get lifted, that in December you'll see some camps, right? Hopefully we get some events back going, and the recruiting process will be kind of back up and running again. But I understand how difficult it is right now. When it comes to the non-California question, right? When it comes to that, right? And so you're talking to two people who played and coached outside of California, right? A lot. And so I love this question. And I'm going to tell you the reason why it's so important, why even having a call like this where we're giving this information for free or open call for anybody to be on, right? Is that I want everybody to know, I said this in the beginning and I meant it. There's a school out there that wants you and is very interested to have you, and there's a place for everybody. When I was at Bucknell University, most of my athletes were not from California. The California athletes were the smaller group. And if at any point they were 50-50 at any given point in time, 50 California and 50 non-California. And when I bring up this slide that has the resume on it right now, right, that shows resume, what becomes more important than where you are from is this vital information. So when I say vitals in bold there, that's why this question, good timing on the question, right? Because it's more important to me as a college coach, right, that you fit my academic profile, that you can swim, you have athleticism, and you're coachable, than where you're from. Those are more important to me, right? So for example, I had an athlete from New Hampshire. I promise you there's nobody on this call from New Hampshire right now, right? And he was an athlete, great athlete, good swimmer from New Hampshire that came to one of my summer camps, was a very impressive young man, right? But he was a great athlete, could swim well, could throw the ball, but had zero water polo experience coming from New Hampshire, right? Within 2 years of being on my program, he was the captain of the team, right? And his fourth year, he was an All-American, right? And a starter ready to go, right? Why? Because he was an athlete who was wanting to play water polo at a high level. So the vital information was more important than experience. Now, probably most people on this call from Texas, Illinois, California, Florida, New York, Pennsylvania, all the people that we have on this call right now, your level of experience is already ahead of most people. It's a misnomer, right, that you have less experience than the California person. California is also a very big place, right? So there's a lot of places in California where they're not getting great experience as well, right? So don't let that just be a generalized statement, right? The story that I said about the kid from New Hampshire, I could say about girls from New Mexico, right? I had girls from New Mexico on my team. I had a goalie from Brooklyn, New York, right, on my team. No experience. The video he showed me was awful. He sent in a terrible recruiting video, but it was a good young man. Came in, worked really hard, had the vitals, good student, good athlete, right? Wanted to work hard. And again, by his fourth year, he was an All-American from around the country. And I had West Coast schools telling me, where did this person come from? Where are they? Again, I won't call these athletes out by name, but I want you to know, and I say this to every college talk that I give, if you're from wherever you are from, I know that there's more water polo there than from New Mexico, New Hampshire, Brooklyn, New York at the moment, even though we have a couple clubs growing there and I'm excited about it, right? That your experience level needs to match this vital information. It's not there. Believe me when I say it. Max Irving could have talked about one of his teammates, Matt Farmer, right, from Chicago, right? Highly recruited from Chicago, Illinois, right? And not even, I think his athleticism is limited. I say this to him all the time. He's on our national team now. But his work ethic and the vitals and the things that he put together made him one of the best centers in college ever had and won national championships at that level. So I never want anybody, if you're listening now, I never want you to say that where you are from is limiting to what you can accomplish at the collegiate level. It's just not matched up, right? There are chances for you. But make a resume where if I'm reading it, it screams to me, right, that you have these vital things that I'm talking about right here, and you keep it in one page. If these things scream out at me, I'm not going to care where you're from, right? In fact, it can work the opposite way. The athletes that I would coach sometimes at the collegiate level that came from storied programs and came from the biggest clubs and all this experience, by the time they got to me as a college coach, I'd say, well, I got nothing left to teach you, because they would come with big egos, right? And say, well, my coach in high school would do it this way. And so that's great, but you're in college now, and this is what you're supposed to do. And most college coaches believe that they're good coaches. And what's that college coach going to do? I can take that good athlete, as long as they can swim, throw, egg beater, right, and be coachable, and I can teach them water polo, right? Chelsea will vouch for water polo is not a complicated sport. It's a very difficult sport to play, but it's actually really simple to play when you're in the water, right? So swim down to the 2-meter line. If you're open, shoot. If you're guarded, pass the ball. That's it. That's the whole game in 10 seconds, right? This isn't football where you got to read 50 plays or 100 plays on your arm, right? The quarterback's got to lift up the page. Water polo is very simple. So as a college coach, I can teach it to you. You're from Texas, you're from Florida, you're from Pennsylvania, Illinois. I'm going to teach you how to play. But if you don't have these vitals that we have listed here, I can't help you. If you're not athletic, if you're not willing to work hard at school, if you're not coachable, if you don't have all these things there. So keep that in mind. The reference piece becomes important too. Go down to the 5th or 6th point down there where it says references. I connect this to something I said 2 slides ago. How many degrees of separation in water polo? 1. So I just need to be able to call that reference and be able to say quickly, right, what they know about you and to give you a good reference. So know that as you go. Some examples of what a resume can look like. You can literally take a picture of what I have here on the left, right? Fill that in, add a headshot, and you have a resume, right? And you have your resume of what you need to be. Okay. The reason I put this old resume up here on the right, my right, maybe your left, is I circled when I talk about vitals, this big resume with 400 words on it. I didn't read half of it. I circled 4 things, right? I circled, right, his grade, what year is he in, what year is he going to graduate, right? What's his GPA, who's the coach I'm going to call, right, to get a quick reference, and other academic information. That's it. I actually crossed out, you don't see it clearly, but I crossed out statistics. You don't see statistics listed out here on the left. I don't care about your stats as a college coach. If you tell me that you average 6 goals a game, doesn't matter. If you tell me that you scored 200 goals in the season, it doesn't matter. Because those 200 goals you scored in the season doesn't mean that you can play 2-meter defense. Doesn't mean that you can swim. Doesn't mean that you could throw. Doesn't mean that you're going to be a good teammate. And of those 200, maybe you scored 100 of them against the same 3 teams in your league that barely started water polo, right? And you're dropping 20 goals on them personally yourself. Those statistics don't mean much to me. What I need to know is that you're fluid in the water. You have a good relationship with the water. You can move. You're athletic. You're coachable. These are the things I want, and someone's going to give you a good reference. So swim times do become important, mainly to prove that you have a good relationship with the water, right? That you can move. Fair? All right. To-do list, right? Know that this changes year by year, but right now, really start your communication and really be extra communicative during this COVID time, right? Really be extra communicative during COVID, and know that that's what we're trying to make up for in relation to this. If you have videos, people always ask about videos, shorter the better, right? Some coaches may ask for a full game during this time of COVID because they have time and they can watch a full game, but during other times they're not as busy. So really think about highlighting. Anybody can make a film now on iMovie. I just learned how to use iMovie this year, right? And I'm not very bright. So you can get some help from your teammates, from people in your club, in your high school, help you create some highlights, and just know what we're looking for in the highlights aren't just goals. What I want to know is that you're fluid in the water. Goalies do a great job of this. So goalies, when they send usually their recruiting videos, the good ones are smart about it. They show how they're lunging, right? So then I can see, oh, they know how to ADEWP, they know how to move. There's lateral movement. I can see that. I don't know why more field players don't do this. Show me how you go over your hips shot block. Show me how you go from vertical to horizontal. Show me how you swim head up, right? Show me how you move, and on top of all the other water polo highlights, so that I know that you can be kind of ready to go, right? And so I know it's a tough time for everyone when it comes to visits and some of the things I have on these slides, right? But this time will pass. You'll get to it quickly, and in the meantime, make sure that you're over-communicating using every chance you have from there. And know from an alliance standpoint, the reason we're offering these types of educational opportunities, right, is for us, right, that we advocate, right, for the inclusion and equity, work to provide education opportunity to anyone who shares our love for water polo. And we're here tirelessly to work to help you guys get through this. And I went longer than I wanted to, but I also want to be able to answer questions and really get thorough with this, so that we have, that we're here to offer this service to you guys as people who really care about the sport and care about you and want to see you play. And if you're a coach or a parent on here, hopefully you can take some of this information back, couple it with, work with your college counselors, to work with your club coaches, high school coaches, and put it all together and really help push forward. And all the coaches I represent as executive director of the College Coach Association have not stopped recruiting. There's no halt in the recruiting time. They have to recruit. Athletes will matriculate. Athletes will graduate. They'll transfer. There are athletes going to grad school now that are exhausting their eligibility in one place, moving to another school. Right? So there's going to be opportunities. So know that it's there for you. So happy to answer a few questions, as we go forward here. Chelsea, anything you want to throw in there?
Yeah, there was a question about LGBTQ plus college-bound players and resources / supports available for those players.
Yeah, I think what's important is that one, you can contact the Alliance directly, right, on our social media, and know that you have a support group within the Alliance, right, to help you do this, of athletes such as yourself that you can identify with, relate with, have mentors, people who have gone through the process before you, right, that can help you through this, coaches at that level that can help you guide this. So my direct question to you would be, or my direct answer to you would be to reach out to the Alliance, right, to have that. And then also, while you are going back to kind of what Chelsea talked about, and you can chat a little about this too, Chelsea, is what you were saying about while you're on campus, what resources outside of water polo do you have, right, to help supplement your experience, with that as well. So I would also say, a lot of people ask if the deck will be available. I've seen that question a few times. We'll probably post this video somewhere if we can on the website, or somewhere else, that we can be. So yes, and a lot of this information is available at usawaterpolo.org. Same stuff. Go to usawaterpolo.org, click on sport development programs, and then go to College Corner, and a lot of this stuff is there. So feel free to pop in a few more questions as you guys stay in or out. Someone asked here, I had my season canceled for polo. I don't have film. How do I show colleges and recruiters my skill? Okay. So it's important. That's where a lot of stuff we talk about is important. Many people on this call, right? So the question is, my high school season was canceled. I don't have a highlight film. What do I do? Right? It's a totally valid question, right? Totally valid question. So what you can do is be over communicative. So your references, right? Like people who can speak on your behalf, right, become very important. These are people who are the closest to you. So it's your high school coach, right? Your club coaches, people who can speak on your behalf. If you did go to a camp and someone evaluated a camp, getting them to be a reference for you there, that becomes really important. And so I think it's over communicating that. If you can create a highlight film in a backyard pool, it's okay right now. Like if you don't have a pool, but your friend has a pool, and you can jump in their backyard and you can get them to use their phone and film. Like I said, use iMovie on your computer and make a highlight film. No college coach is going to look at that right now and say, like, what are you doing? Right? They're going to be very thankful for that because you're being resourceful during the time of COVID, right? And like I said, if you're a goalie, very easy. Show us 10 high lunges, 10 low lunges, right? Show us how you egg beater, show us your leg strength. If you're a field player, show us your good body positioning, show us how you swim head up, show us how you transition in your shot blocking, pass with somebody, even if it's off a rebounder. Any of those things can help us evaluate during this time. And again, I fear not, this is the livelihood of the water polo community. The second people are allowed to do things, they're going to do it. I got a question on Twitter today, like as if somehow myself or others who are leaders in water polo are holding back the opportunity to open up pools and programming. Believe me, it's all our livelihood and it's all of our passion. The minute where we get the green light from state governments, federal, state, county, we are all in. We're all itching and jonesing to get back to the pool. So know that that's there. So anything you can do, hopefully that answers your question. International student applicants, okay? That's good. There may be some international students on here. I know we had some friends reach out from Ireland, from the country of Ireland, who wanted to be on the call. So since COVID, I've actually talked to athletes and coaches from Argentina, Canada, Puerto Rico, Mexico, Ireland, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, who are all navigating this process. And all athletes from these countries end up playing in college. Specifically, if you are an international student, just know that you're going to have to be over-communicative with this. So that the reference that I just talked about, having a degree of separation, when you're an international student, probably becomes 2 or 3 degrees of separation, right? So I'm going to need your help, a little more help with your references and with finding a place, but otherwise it's the same. But also understand that the coaches, if there's a difference in the admissions process for international students versus in-state or domestic students, try to understand too, that's going to differ institution to institution, right? So you're going to have to ask them that. But know that, for a lot of schools, I mentioned St. Francis in Brooklyn before. They offer varsity men's and women's water polo. Part of the mission statement of the university is to offer college experiences for first-generation students. They actively seek international students. They're actively seeking international. A lot of campuses are looking for water polo to help bring diversity to their campus, right? That's part of their, if we're talking about diversity and inclusion, a lot of schools have water polo for that purpose, right? So you're not at a disadvantage. It could actually be an advantage for you at some point, right? And that's not just international. When I was at Bucknell, they basically, as a university, basically had most of their population from a tri-state area: Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and then Connecticut, right? So the tri-state is New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, right, as you kind of go in that route. Pennsylvania, as a Pennsylvania university, most of the athletes came from there. So when I said, hey, I have someone from Florida, they got really excited, right? When I had someone from Texas, they got really excited, right? So there's geographic diversity for universities, and there's international diversity, and you can bring any of those.
John, for the references, does it need to be necessarily a person that's in the water polo community, such as a coach, or can it be someone who knows you either academically or personally, or just your character, something like that?
All sounds good. Any of those sound good, right?
Okay.
And you could even qualify that. Chelsea's a great question, right? You can say, I have a water polo reference, right? I have a water polo reference. This is a character reference. This is an academic reference. This is a, right? And you could put it in parentheses there, and I think that's helpful. And again, especially during this times, there's no problem with over communicating during this time, right? Because there's no substitute for it right now, right? So somebody asked a question, what's the better way to interact with coaches in person, ODP or JOs and things like that? Everything's the same. It's all the same. You know, listen, people will ask, right? What is, do I have to do ODP, or do I have to go play in JOs? What if my club doesn't play in JOs? The most important thing that matters is the vital information on your resume, right? Are you a good fit for them? And don't let those things be barriers along the way. I'm going to ask you why as a coach. Like, if you don't do those things or you haven't sought those things out, I'm going to ask why and say, hey, you know, what are your circumstances? What's your situation? You know, what can we do more? But at the same time, it's not the barrier, right? It's not the end all be all, right? As we go on here.
John,
go ahead, Chelsea, please.
Is the position you play one of those vital pieces of information? I know it wasn't on your list, but I, in the past few years being out of college, know that when coaches are looking for players, they often ask, like, do you know any sets from Florida? Are there any goalies? What does this person play? So is that a really important piece that they should put in that resume as well?
Yeah, no, it is important. You know, it is important. And I think, and I'm really glad you asked that, Chelsea. That's a great question. Is a lot of times I'll get the athletes and coaches tell me, well, I'm going to put that I'm a utility player, right? And if I put that I'm a utility player, right, then coaches will think that I can do a lot of different things, and that's a great chance for me to be on there. Bless you. Yeah. I think it's important to put position, but it's also important to put a great coach said this once, and I think it's important advice for everybody. You want to be a jack of all trades, but a master of one, right? So what's your primary position, and what are the secondary things that you can do? So for example, right, I'm an attacker. A lot of people are attackers or drivers. You want to say that. You want to be able to qualify that I play on either the left side or the right side, right? And that I can play on either side of the pool if given the opportunity to, right? Or I play the right side, but I can also play center defender any chance you want. Or I'm a center defender. Oh, you have 5 center defenders? That's okay. I also play the left side, you know, as well, right? And as I think it's important to qualify that as you go. Of course, if you're a goalkeeper, that should be the number one thing you say, right, on there, and so everybody knows, because that's the most specialized position. But otherwise, it's open. And of course, if you're left-handed, you want to shout that from the rooftops, right? Because left-handers, just like most sports, tend to be sought after, right? So there's a little more unique in having that skill set in there. So lefties, God bless you. You always get more advantages than others, right, in the recruiting process. So, but that's a really good question. I think you want to say that. But last thing you want to put is utility. Don't put utility, because that only makes me confused, right? Tell me that you have a primary and secondary position. I feel the questions have kind of dried up a little bit on the left there. You know, Chelsea, anything you want to say about the Alliance here at the end as one of the leaders, founding members? You know, we're here to offer this opportunity, maybe some things to come, right, for the Alliance and what you're doing from that position.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if a lot of you or any of you know what the Alliance is, but John mentioned it earlier in the beginning of his talk. We are here to diversify, right, and allow water polo to be accessible to everyone, and bring in everyone and kind of show that the sport is made for everyone. And historically it hasn't been, and so we are working in many different ways to try to achieve that diversity and equity within the sport. And so what we want to do for people like you guys, student athletes, water polo players, anyone in the community, we want to open up the Alliance as a place of community and support, that you guys can just know that we have your back, right? And that there's somewhere, some people are behind you, pushing you forward, supporting you in any way that you need. And I put the link in the chat so you guys can go to the website and kind of sign up and put your information in to get emails and get information. So when we're having, we had a couple weeks ago, we had a little group of student athletes come together and just talk and tell their stories. And really it's a place for you to come and know that you're not alone if you're having experiences, anything that you want to talk about, any grievances and any positives even that you want to share about your experiences in the water polo community. We're here to listen, we're here to help, and we're here to support you. And we're happy to have this position.
It's really, I think one of the great opportunities for everyone to understand that we want to work for water polo to be open to all. And thank you, Chelsea, for your work with the Alliance. And I think the biggest thing for us today is that one of the ways for us to advance our sport, right, through this is more people playing college, right? And we want more people to play in college, a more diverse group of people playing in college, because those experiences help keep you playing and in the game for life. So if you play in college, you're more likely to become a coach, more likely to play masters, more likely to become a referee, right? More likely to give back into the sport in some way, shape, or form. And we want you to continue to be involved in water polo for as long as you can the rest of your life. And that's why college water polo is so important to us as athletes and coaches, and we want to share those experiences. And on you guys today, we want you guys to have those opportunities. And again, back to things in the beginning, be proactive, educate yourself, right? Keep an open mind in this process and make some history here with all the opportunities that are available for you. So follow the Alliance on the website, sign up, follow us on social media. We appreciate you guys. I hope everybody's healthy and safe out there and taking care of themselves, and appreciate you guys being on, and keep spreading the love of water polo across the country. So,
thank you guys so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks guys. Take care.
Thank you.